Welcome to chess, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so this is the round. Well, not round. This is the second knockout game between Teimour Radjabov and Wesley. So you see, they switched, and so I'm pretty sure the first player plays white, then they'll play black, then they play white, then they play black. If you need a fourth game, of course, if there's 2 wins and a draw by one of the players, I mean, it's just over with or whatever. And so, trying to get into the finals of the Champions Tour, the Skilling Open. And so, like I said, we got the second game they played with each other here. So let's go ahead and take a look, see what we have here. Okay. All right, I'm good. Everything's adjusted. Everything looks like it's in A shape. All right, so we have knight to F3, which by itself is the ready opening. We got D5, D4, knight to F6, C4, E6, knight to C3. So we have Queen's Gambit decline on the board, so we'll see kind of what avenue we go down with this. All right, so we have C5. So we have the Queen's Gambit Semi-Tarrasch, or it could be also known as a Tarrasch, but it's kind of it was kind of Tarrasch's way of counteracting the Queen's Gambit. Of course, like I said before, if you just back up, you have like some C6s, which is a Slav. You have just the general Queen's Gambit decline here. You have the Queen's Gambit accepted. There's some sidelines and stuff, but C5 is probably about the 6th played move on the list, so it's not super common. It's definitely not rare or losing by any means, but it's definitely not the main lines, as you would say. All right, so we have C takes D5, C takes D4, we got Queen takes D4, E takes D5. All right, so we got E4, D takes E4, Queen takes D8, King takes D8, only move, of course. All right, so we got knight to G5, just trying to, threaten a little fork city here, between the king and the rook. Of course, if you play something just like, insanely super passive and you say, hey, I'm just going to develop my knight. You're not going to develop your knight. That's not what we're going to do. We're not doing that. Let's back up. Well, I guess I went forward. Anyway, you guys already saw the move. Can't hide it no more. Bishop E6 was the move that was played. Just defending this F7 square. Of course, you could have just moved king back over. But you're also going to have kind of some issues here too. Usually when you have the queen swap line, you play something like, king over. You kind of have some issues because you have the knights kind of attacking both sides of the board. It's really hard to defend. You got to play something like knight A6 or something. So like I said, we have bishop to E6, knight takes E6, all right, F takes E6, bishop to G5, H6, and it is in this point of the game that we are in a brand new game. This is the novelty of the game. As general as H6 is when your knight is pinned to your king, but yeah, like I said, we are in a brand new position according to the database from what I saw, and so we got a little in-betweener in there, and I'm moving the bishop right away, going ahead and just hitting the castles with check. So we got king to E7. It's a little bit weird on the king movement because, of course, now this bishop is like super duper blocked, at least for the moment. All right, so we got bishop to E3. All right, so we got knight to C6. All right, we got G3, trying to get this bishop, on some type of diagonal, some type of active placement here. All right, so we got rook to C8, king to B1. Got knight to G4, trying to eliminate this bishop here on E3. All right, so we have rook to E1. Okay, so if we just go back, a touch. So we'll go to knight to G4. So you guys see that that rook to E1 was already played. If you guys want to stop the video real quick and see, instead of rook to E1, which wasn't, it wasn't a losing move. It was a pretty legitimate strong move, but there's actually a stronger move in this position. It's a pretty nice move. Pretty nice move. It seems pretty natural, but like I said, it's a pretty nice move. You guys want to stop the video real quick and see if you can come up with, you know, the strongest move in the position. Feel free, and I will catch up with you in a second. All right, cool. If anybody came up with the move bishop to h3, you got a good eye. There is a lot to this move. You know, of course, there's the immediate attack on this knight. It's kind of x-raying through and looking at this pawn, and even, you know, kind of looking at this rook as well. You know, of course, you know, once you're able to kind of like swing a rook over something like that, it would just like, you know, very much increase the pressure on this this e6 square. But you know, probably we see something like knight takes e3. You know, we'd have f takes e3, rook to d8, knight takes e4, getting our pawn back, and you can see everything is pretty equal. White is a little bit further ahead in development, so you know you need at least another 2 moves before black is completely done with their development. You know, g5 just tries to help you get that bishop out. Rook takes g8. You know, we got knight takes g8. You know, of course you're not playing king takes g8 because you're gonna drop the pawn just straight out, and that's actually really, really good for white. You know, so you probably see something like rook to c1. You know, knight back to c6, a3. You know, your intentions are trying to push this pawn up and, you know, knock this knight somewhere, so you can try to penetrate with this rook. You know, and you know, maybe try to pick up some of these pawns and stuff like that over there. You know, also a try by black would be possibly h5. You know, knight takes c3 was actually much better. But so, you know, you see bishop g5 check. You know, something like possibly knight back to, you know, f6 defending, knight takes e4, rook to d8, you know, knight to c5. You know, white is just doing very, very well in this position. You know, you're gonna have to push pawn, but you know, you have rook possibly coming over here, stuff like that. So it's really, really good for white here. So going back to what we had before, like I said, we have rook to e1. Just trying to make sure that, you know, we defend this bishop. You know, the main idea is trying not to damage your pawn structure. You know, you definitely don't want to always, you know, you don't want to give yourself a isolated pawn if you can help it. And so it's just a lot easier to try to keep the pawn, you know, the pawn chain as healthy as possible here. So, all right, so we have king to f7, just clearing that way here for the bishop to come out. All right, so we got knight takes e4 and b4. That's a nice little in-betweener there, though, because, you know, it's you know, the rook is kind of in a peculiar position. You know, it's like trying to defend this this bishop, but it's being attacked. So it's, you know, there's really only one spot to go to, and that's rook to e2. If we back up a move, it's super counterintuitive because, you know, giving up the rook for a bishop is not something you generally want to do. But like I said before, like you guys looked and saw before, because I know y'all are geniuses out there, bishop to h3 is actually a very strong move in this position. You know, just allowing the exchange to be won, but you're going to be really deflecting the bishop away from the defense of this d6 square. So if we just look at kind of a sample variation real quick, you know, we see bishop takes e1, knight to d6 check, king to f6, and you would actually even take the knight here first, because, you know, you still have that work on pre. And so if you did something maybe like trying to come over and you know, attack, do a little counter attack on the rook or on the knight, you see knight takes b7, rook to b8, knight would come down to c5, and you know, so you know, you are ahead by a pawn, you know, you're down the exchange, but you do have these you know, really huge bishops in this particular position, and because the board is super, super open, you're actually not too much down. If you're down at all, this is actually probably better for white. And then of course, you know, you have this you know, you have this this check coming here if you have the ability to play it. But like I said, we do have rook to e2. So knight takes on e3, rook takes e3, knight to d4, and we have a3, just giving the king a little bit of luft, you know, because clearly the king is you know, very much stalemated in this position. So, you know, you definitely want to try to give the king a little bit of room to breathe here. All right, so we got bishop back to e7, got bishop to g2, rook h to d8. So we got rook to d1. Knight to F5, just throwing a little attack on that rook here. All right, so we got rook E to D3. So rook takes D3, rook takes D3, rook back to D8. So we're trying to just get, you know, a trade of these rooks and stuff. First, we got king to C2, king to E8. So we got rook takes D8, king takes D8. All right, so king to D3. As you guys see from a lot of the games that I analyze and stuff, you know, once they get into an in-game phase, you know, you definitely are trying to maximize the influence that your king has. Because, you know, earlier in the game, you know, you definitely want to try to keep your king in the corner, and because there's a lot of tactics involved, right? But, you know, when you get into an end game, you definitely want to try to move your king, you know, centralize your king as much as possible, because the king becomes a very, very fighting piece in the end game. So we have B6 here, and we have bishop to H3. You guys see how bishop to H3 is just a theme throughout the entire game here. All right, so we have knight to D6. So we got bishop takes E6. We got a knight takes E4, king takes E4, and we have A5, and so we have A4. So, you know, I'll be putting up in the, you know, top right-hand corner a little card here for the video, my little pawn freeze video that I made. And, you know, it just kind of gives you a good idea of like where A4 might have come from. And so, you know, we got bishop to C5, we got F3, so king to E7, bishop to C4, king to F6. We got B3, just making sure that we keep this, you know, everything pretty solid over here. Pretty cool little like symmetrical structure here. All right, so we got G5, H3, just trying to make sure we prevent any G4 business. All right, so we got bishop to F2, we got G4. So as you guys notice here, you know, we have an in-game with opposite color bishops. You know, white is up a pawn. And something I want you guys to take notice of right now is the fact that, you know, white has a light square bishop, and you notice that all of black's pawns are on dark squares. And then the same thing with white. You know, we have a dark square bishop for black, and so we have all of the pawns for white on light squares. And so basically that's a situation where, you know, either side's bishop can never really attack the opposite colors, you know, the opposite side's pawns. So, you know, when you're playing a game and you're playing against, let's say, for example, you have a knight, you're playing against a bishop or something, or you have, you know, a bishop against a bishop, you know, you want to try as best you can to put your pawns on the opposite color to your opponent's bishop. You don't want them to hinder your own bishop. But you do want to make sure that they are not attackable, because, you know, this king can't be on both sides of the board at the same time. You know, so, you know, you definitely don't want some pawns being attacked, you know, way on the other side of the board, and your king can't get to it, right? So, you know, so we got a bishop to G1. And so we have bishop to E2. Just, you know, kind of like wasting some moves. So we've gotten into a position here. These opposite color bishop in games, even when you have like an extra pawn, you know, they're a majority of them are theoretically drawn. You know, you're not gonna be able to successfully push the pawn home, and you end up in a lot of situations where you'll end up with like a rook pawn. And in this particular situation, the most likely candidate for a pass pawn or an extra pawn at the end of the game is going to be this H pawn. And as you can see, white has a light square bishop, so he actually would have the wrong rook pawn, because this bishop doesn't have the ability to influence this corner, you know, square. And then, like you guys saw in one of my previous videos, you know, this is all where the king needs to live, you know, to be able to make sure that he defends against that possibility here. And so, all right, so we have bishop. All right, so we have bishop to F2, and so we have bishop to C4, and we have bishop to G1, and bishop to E2, bishop to F2, and we have bishop to C4. And it is in this position that the players they drew by repetition, because, like I said, there's not really a lot of progress that either side can make. However, if I were to go back here, this was a so after bishop to G1, kind of just, you know, killing it, wasting the tempo. A very interesting try for a possible advantage would have been F4. I think a lot of you guys might have been looking like, man, can't you just push F4? Because, you know, clearly H4 is not getting pushed. But yeah, F4, I think that was a pretty interesting try here. You know, we would have something like G takes F4, king takes F4. You know, we'd have a bishop to H2, you know, checking the king away, you know, from its like beautiful ideal square there on F4. We have king to e4, king to g5, bishop to e6, king to h4, king to d5. Of course, setting up, you know, if you do this, you know, you'd be pushing g5 here with check on the king, and you know, you'd actually be able to just push this pawn home. And so you definitely want to make sure you stay away from that possibility. So like I said, we got king to d5, bishop to g3, king to c6, and bishop to f2 would be you know, more or less the same thing. You know, like I said, I mean, neither side can really make, you know, legitimate progress. So, you know, make sure you're thinking of these different scenarios when you have bishops of opposite colors. You know, don't be so stressed out if you lose a pawn, because, you know, you have good drawing chances and stuff like that. So when you study end games, you know, you get to think differently about the game. And so, you know, studying the end game will influence the middle game and even the opening. And so when people talk about, you know, studying end games is really important, and studying tactics, they're not lying to you. Yeah, so that is the second game between Wesley and Teimour Radjabov, and it did get to a draw. So as of right now, this moment, Teimour Radjabov has 1.5, and Wesley just has half. So if Teimour is able to win his next game, then that just completes the elimination right there. So I appreciate you guys stopping by. Go ahead and subscribe and like, and, you know, leave me some comments. Let me know how you like my little Christmas setup. I've gotten some good feedback on it and stuff like that. And, you know, I think I've come a long way, you know, with my design. You know, from a couple of months ago, a lot of you guys that have been there with me from the beginning, you know, you guys know that I really didn't know anything when I started. So, you know, for me to kind of, you know, get myself to where I'm at right now, like, I'm actually kind of proud of me, like, you know. And so, you know, it's a good thing. But like I said, I appreciate you guys stopping by, and you know, I'll see you guys in the next video. I appreciate it.